Hey, good morning. Good morning. This is Jared with eCarrier Check. I'm excited. Our Friday lives, we're always trying to educate our community and really try to help you guys grow. That's our ultimate goal. And I'm excited to introduce our guest, but I really want to get into, Nate, how was your week? What were the big questions of the week? And tell us a little bit more about eCarrier Check.
Yeah, it seemed to be a pretty good week. I always find out that, we didn't get a lot of calls, so maybe that's good. Maybe it's bad, but maybe that's good. People are catching on to our site, so
Sure.
knowing how to use it. I think some of the questions have been lately that I've still noticed are connecting with shippers.
Yeah.
So we get a lot of those questions. A lot of freight brokers coming to us. How do I connect with the shippers? Find the carriers. So still on those type of things. But yeah, a little bit with eCarrier Check. We built the site, for brokers, dispatchers, and carriers to help you find leads, right? So we're here to help you grow your business. Let's help you find leads, help you be diverse, and help you solve some of the issues you may have. So potential solutions there.
Yeah, absolutely. And how do people get a hold of us? Do we have demos? Kind of talk us through
Yeah,
that
we
aspect.
have many ways. Go to ecarriercheck.com, email our support, give us a call, join some demos to just kind of see the software, be ran by us, Jared and I, anyways. Every Monday at 6 p.m. Eastern, Tuesdays and Thursdays at 2 p.m. Eastern. You can get signed up at ecarriercheck.com. Free demos.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the one thing that I really like about our community is just not only how diverse it is, but how willing they are to share their stories, their growth.
Yeah.
We have Justin on today, who's a user of eCarrier Check, but they're always willing to help other people grow and try to find that. So I'm excited about that. I am also excited about that for those people that are watching. We'll be giving away some eCarrier Check bags, some swag, some stuff like that. So how we're going to do it is just, throw some comments in on whatever social platform you're on. We'll be doing a drawing later this week and sending out some bags. So definitely hit us up on social media, like it, subscribe, comment, whatever it may be, and then we'll be doing a drawing. So I'm excited about that.
Me too.
So today we're talking with Justin, who is a freight broker, been a freight broker for about 4 years. We've had him on before. He's got a lot of questions, always good answers. So if you have any questions, put them in the chat, put them wherever, so we can take a look at them and get him going with some of these questions. But today we're really going to focus in on, 3 valuable lessons that you've learned in the course of your time as a freight broker. And I'm really excited about this. I got to think through, my 3. What would be my 3 as a freight broker before I, switch to a software guy? But I think the one thing, and then we'll dive into your, what are those things that really, spurred yours. For me, what it was is when I went from just being a day-to-day freight broker of moving a truck here and there to really trying to provide a solution sale. Let's not just put a band-aid on it or just move one truck. I never really understood, rates per se, but my ultimate goal was really trying to be a solution sales. And honestly, I can say even, and I know we have a lot of new people that watch this, some of those solution sales, I kind of come with scars or come with experience and time, right? But that was one of those things. If I was going to say what's one thing that I really enjoyed and that I got a lot out of was I went from transactional to solutions, and I thought that was really what took me sort of to the top, or at least went to that road. But let's talk through your 3 things, what you've learned and some of those lessons. But first, before we dive into that, how was your week? Something as a freight broker, when we switch from cold to hot and hot to cold, and we have full moons on Fridays, our market's crazy. There's a lot going on. Tell us about your week. We want to live in your shoes for the next 10 minutes. What does it look like?
I don't think you'd want to live in my shoes after this week. It's one where there's a few scars, a few kind of crazy loads that went south on me and things like that. And so it was a tough one. It was a challenge at times, but we made it. We're here. It's Friday.
Yes.
So
when you say south, walk us through what happened, or what was the experience that you faced or the difficulty that you faced?
A lot of trucks breaking down more than anything. That and lack of communication. That's my biggest pet peeve in this job is when carriers don't communicate. And I ran into that a couple times on kind of some more urgent loads. And so I'm having the customers call me and they're all upset, and I'm trying to find out where the truck driver's at, and they're not answering their phone, and they needed it there last night, and I couldn't get a hold of the driver, and it was a wild day, but and that's kind of been how the course of my whole week went. It seemed like just one thing after another, but like I said, it's Friday. We made it.
Yeah,
so.
that's fair. I can look at that. Obviously, I'm interested to hear, what are your three things as far as, the lessons you've learned and how have you grown from those? Obviously, this week is one of those things. But walk us through, where do you feel like you really kind of stepped up a notch, or some of those lessons that we can give?
In terms of since
becoming a freight broker, yeah.
Kind of like you said, when you went from, when I first started, I had zero experience in this industry. I knew nothing about freight. So when I started, I just had a couple loads a week that I would cover, and they'd call me, they'd tell me the price, I'd find a truck, I'd move it, and we'd move on. And then over time, it switches to where you're providing a service for somebody. You're not just doing it for a paycheck. You actually start to know your customers and stuff, and then you go above and beyond. And it doesn't matter what they need. It doesn't matter how quickly they need it there. You do everything in your power to do it and get it done for them. And so I think doing that, that kind of, I made that step, like you said. It's a solutions. You're providing solutions. You're not providing just the service. So that was a big step for me getting to that point.
Sure.
And it took a while, but
how did you figure out rates? I think rates is such an interesting game. Like I said, when I switched over from being kind of that day-to-day broker to a full service broker, I almost lost track of where rates were at.
Mm-hmm.
I couldn't tell you where rates were at. I just knew here's a solution I needed to provide and continue to manage. But from a day-to-day, let's talk about it day-to-day, because that's where you get started as a freight broker. How do you get rates? And what were some of the scars that you learned with specifically, getting rates or giving your clients rates and things such as that?
Well, rates now are crazy. I couldn't tell you what the rate is for hardly anything anymore, just because of fuel and availability and stuff. So
sure,
that one, that's tough right now, but you have a little bit of an idea, I guess. But starting out, it was mostly just, I jumped into a brokerage where there was already a lot of years of experience and stuff. So I had a lot of people to learn from. So asking them, as well as, load boards back in the day, pre-COVID, you'd post a load and within 2 minutes you'd get 5 phone calls minimum. And so you would know where the rate is. You would know what it was going to cost to move it. I couldn't imagine being a brand new freight broker today. Obviously e-carrier check would help any new freight broker because the load boards really aren't producing like they used to. So as a new freight broker today, it'd be tough to figure out rates, but there's ways to do it, and e-carrier check's one of them. You just call local carriers and see what it would cost them, and then it gives you a good little ballpark to run back to your customer. So what's some advice you would give a new freight broker? Because at e-carrier check, we see a lot of newer freight brokers that weren't in the position like you, where you went to a brokerage where they had some years under their belt. A lot of the freight brokers that Jared and I talked to, they're at home. Yeah. They're not sure how to bid. They're not sure how to find out their rates. So
right.
Is there any kind of advice you can give those kind of brokers to kind of shed some light on them? Yeah. I would say for new guys right now, definitely jumping on like your guys' Q&As and stuff. That's huge. Just hearing stories and questions and everything from people that have been in this industry for years, and just learning that way, learning from other people's mistakes, I think would would greatly benefit a new freight broker. That, and like my advice is don't get discouraged, because you're gonna have weeks like this week. It was rough, but I love what I do, and I know that next week it could be completely different, and it keeps me coming back every day. Um, and when you're making those sales calls, you're gonna get told no a lot. You're gonna get hung up on, and you're gonna have very unsuccessful stretches where you might not even get somebody to answer the phone for 3 straight weeks, and you're just like, man, I'll never get a customer, but it'll come. You just got to find the right one. You got to find your niche and stick to it. And yeah, when you were mentioning, Justin mentioned the Q&A. So for our current subscribers, we give them an opportunity to meet with us every Wednesday. Just bounce off strategies, talk, to other people that are in your same shoes. So for those that are subscribed or thinking about signing up with us, that's something that we give to you. We try to give back and try to help you grow. So let's talk. Really good community.
Yeah. Our ultimate goal with the Carrier Check when we built it is how do we help not only educate people for the quality of people that are in our industry, but how do we help people grow? And then that's our number one focus is what can we put into our software to help people grow? That's the ultimate. Give us number two. There's a lot to unpack, but I'm kind of curious of what seems to be something else that's really driven or been a cornerstone of your learning experience over the course of the last 4 years.
Like another lesson. Yeah. Broker patience.
Okay.
There's a lot of times, and I still struggle with it, but it's gotten better over the last couple of years. But I mean, you just sometimes you gotta sit back and relax and just be like, all right, because we're not obviously behind the wheel of the truck. We're not loading we're not on the forklift loading the truck. We're not at the tire shop replacing tires for the guys. We're sitting behind a computer calling them on the phones. And so sometimes you just have to sit back and take a deep breath and be like, all right, let it just play out, because me calling somebody so many times will only get me so far. It's not going to get my guy moved up in line to get loaded quicker. And it's not going to get the alternator that just went out on his truck here a day sooner. Like,
sure.
There's certain things that you need to realize, and you just sit back and you're like, all right, well, it is what it is, and not get so worked up, and be a little more patient with everyone, because there's so many moving parts in this industry. Like I said, there's a guy loading the truck driver, the mechanic, everything. And all the way down the line, I can't control what they do. I can try, but so over the years, I've kind of realized, like, things happen. You got to sit back. You got to breathe. You got to kind of stay level-headed more than anything.
Yeah, it doesn't take much to go from 0 to 100.
Mm-hmm.
As far as things can escalate really quickly, as far as language, as far as the situation, and I like how you put that broker patience, because it's one of those things where you've got to be able to understand the situation at hand, and if you keep calling, you're just going to keep throwing gas on the fire.
Oh yeah.
And it wouldn't matter. Obviously, you're talking about from an operational standpoint. I can just see it from even a shipper standpoint.
Yeah.
From a shipper standpoint, talk to us about where that broker patience comes in. If you're giving quotes or if you're trying to follow up with them, how does a broker patience work when you're talking about shippers?
You got to realize it's going to take time. If I make a cold call and get somebody on the phone, back in my earlier days of this job, I was like, oh, I got them. Like, send me loads right now. Like, let me help you. And then that kind of puts them off. They're like, this guy's kind of like a clingy ex-girlfriend that just keeps calling you. So you got to relax, and you got to, once a week, maybe touch base with them. And they just need to know, like, not so much you're there every single day, just constantly like needing something, but you're there, and they're like, oh, like your name's in the back of their head.
Mm-hmm.
And so they have a load that pops up, and they're like, maybe let's give this guy a try. Like, he's emailed me a couple of times. Seems like a good guy. Like,
let's try. So over the years, it switched from me being the clingy ex-girlfriend to somebody that's like, all right, let's just sit back and kind of play the game here, the long game, you know.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it has worked way better that way than the first.
The reverse.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's definitely a fine line with being consistent. We talk about consistency a lot, and I like how you said that. Maybe once a week instead of every other day.
Yeah.
We get a lot of those questions on how often I should be reaching out to a shipper. How many touches does it take? So there's definitely that fine line.
Yeah, professional persistence, right?
Yeah.
I see Kyle join us. Morning, Kyle. Welcome.
Kyle.
It's good to see you. When you're talking to carriers, obviously they're, like you mentioned earlier, they're out on their own. They're out, we talked to a lot of brokers that are working from their house, but we talked to a lot of carriers as freight brokers, and they're really working by themselves. They probably almost feel a little bit lonely or
they're away from their families.
Exactly. How do you relate to somebody like a driver like that in a quick manner? Just talk about some of those conversations you're having with drivers and how do you build relationships with them?
Yeah, that's a good question. I mean, I have those drivers that I use every week, some of them every day almost. So I know everything about them because I'm on the phone with them all the time. But those ones that are just the one-off guys that call in on a load, you relate to them. I mean, you can tell when you answer the phone if they're in a hurry, if they want to talk, if their mood's good, or if they're mad or whatever it is. So you just kind of play it by hand as the phone call goes on. But a lot of times I like to keep it short and sweet because a lot of truck drivers don't have much patience and they want to get things going. So if it's a one-off guy, I just try to stay on their pace. And if they want to go quick through the phone call, I'll list the details real quick. I'll be like, you want it? They'll go, yep. And then we go about it. But if they want to sit there and talk to me about their kids and what they had for breakfast, I'll sit there and talk to them about that too. Like, it just depends on the driver, I guess.
Sounds like you're trying to build some trust with each other.
Yeah.
It's almost like a team effort, when you get that carrier and that shipper, you're just a team. So
yeah,
that's how I see it.
Yeah, absolutely. Something you said off camera earlier to me was a relationship, and I thought this was kind of interesting, but you took the time to listen to a carrier that you've been building a relationship with. They do loads for you weekly, it sounded like. And, he just had a grandbaby and you were sending him onesies.
Yeah.
Talk us through that, as far as those relationships and how deep that's gotten.
Yeah, I mean, those guys, I talk to them every day. I text him all the time. I mean, and so he was pretty jacked. He was having his first grandkid. And so I want to make sure that this baby was looking good. So we ordered some NTC Logistics onesies and sent them down to him.
That's awesome. That's pretty fun.
Yeah, I've done that. I've done that with a couple shippers, and I've done that with now this guy. And they enjoy it, and it's just kind of the thought that counts. I mean, obviously babies grow at such a rapid pace, so I'll grow that onesie in 2 weeks probably, but it's the thought that counts. I mean, I don't know how many people are sending onesies to other people, but it's just kind of something fun I like to do. But yeah, I know a lot about a lot of carriers that I work with. I mean, like one of them I know he played college baseball, and we've talked about that related on sports a lot.
That's cool.
Yeah, and so just little things like that you just pick up on over time.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Let's switch over to sales for a sec. Just because I always like talking to sales, and you've obviously had a lot of success in that arena. Give us a couple lessons, a couple value adds for those people maybe just getting started as a freight broker, or maybe even 6 months to a year in. What have you found that's worked as far as adding new clients, but also what's worked for retaining current clients, right?
Yeah.
Has there been anything specific that you do with each of those? Let's start with, trying to find new accounts.
Well, it goes back to kind of the patience thing and like not being overwhelming with them. But also you want to stand out, because majority of the people that you're calling, so are 15 other people.
Mm.
And so there's got to be a way for you to stand out. So I'm a big believer in social media. So if I can, I'll follow their business page on LinkedIn and follow them on LinkedIn. And sometimes you do the LinkedIn or Facebook stock and you get to know them a little bit more before you even call them. And so that helps kind of, separate you. If you can find out where they went to college and like I'm a sports nut. So if I find out that they went to, let's say, Tennessee, I'll be like, oh man, I'm a big Peyton Manning fan, and just start that conversation. So they like, some of them, they like those conversations, and it's like, oh, like this guy did his research. He's not just cold calling. So I think that helps. Doing as much research as possible before you call anywhere helps. If you're just searching, like e-carrier check's great for finding shippers, but you got to dive into every one of those calls before you make it. You can't just be like, oh, it's a steel company, call them.
Right.
Like you don't know what kind of steel they're hauling. You don't know where their locations are. You don't know. You don't know anything. You just click in the phone number and call them, and that's not going to get you very far.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I always found with research, the more I knew about them, the less I talked about myself.
Mm-hmm.
I wasn't feature dumping. I wasn't, hey, we do heavy haul all the time. Well, we were talking more, you know what I mean? The other thing that I found with shippers is just, I honestly respecting their time.
Mm-hmm.
You're disrupting their day. And really the ultimate goal for me was, how do I set up time to, give me 20 minutes this week where we can sit down and talk about your business and your network and your challenges and things that aren't working and are working, and seeing if you can find, that time more so than just disrupting their day.
Yeah. I'm a big believer in just saying you let me know when you have 5 to 10 minutes to talk. And that's how I end all my emails to these prospects. I'm like, let me know when you have 10 minutes. And then we can talk through it real quick. And their time's more valuable than mine. So I make sure that they know that.
Can you tell us more about how you do your prospecting or your research? Like, do you do it every a certain day? Do you do maybe a full day of researching and prospecting, and then the next day you're cold calling? What's your process?
So that's a good question. When I first started, it was, I was just going through those shipper lists and going through. Well, this was before you guys were around. I was just kind of going by city and just looking at manufacturers. I did Google Maps a lot, and would just go to the industrial parts of cities and just Google Map and click and drag until I found. I was like, oh, that looks like a place that would ship stuff. So I'd find a company, I'd research it, I'd call, and then I'd write them down and put them in an Excel sheet or something like that. Okay. And back in the day, it was every day or at least other day I was doing that. Now that I've kind of, I'm a little busier now, so it depends. There's not really a set process I have now, but if I have time, I'll dig into it a little bit and start researching. And LinkedIn's huge. I think if you as a new freight broker, utilize LinkedIn more than anything, because you can find exactly who you need to talk to, and you can find out a lot about them, and you can message them right there. And so instead of even calling them, you can message them, and then you're not even disrupting their day. They can look at it when they want, and it's a little more personable than getting an email because it's a direct message. So I'm a big believer in that too. But
yeah, one of the interesting things I think that it stood out to me, you were telling me, we were mentioning, you said know the industry, do your research, whether it's knowing the type of equipment that you need to be having, know what they haul, all that good stuff. So I think that's very important. And just picking up the phone. I remember you were telling me a while ago about your first couple of days as a freight broker. You just kind of jumped into everything. So you kind of got your feet wet right away. You were almost like, what the heck's going on? Mm-hmm. So I think that's kind of an eye opener to people that are just starting off, just kind of jump into it, learn some lessons and, get some scratches or scars on your back.
I got a bunch.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think what really, this is just to give you the idea of how simple-minded my mind was when I was getting started, was if I go niche, Khalees Logistics says, hey, what's up? What's going on?
Good morning.
But if I go niche, I can sort of have the same conversations over and over.
Mhm.
And so, I knew supply chain in and out in the construction industry, right? I understood equipment. I understood what their expectations were. I knew that, a lot of the stuff I moved was up in a union town up in Chicago. And so I knew I wasn't going to get a lot of help with loading.
Yeah.
But I understood equipment really well, right? And so when I started calling, because I was niche, I could sort of have the same conversations, but it allowed me to be immersified in that industry and get really deep. And I really do recommend, if you're a freight broker, get niche,
Yeah.
get really deep into one industry, because then you have the same conversations over and over, and you become really an industry expert.
And you learn the terminology. So when you're talking on the phone to these guys that have been doing it for 15 years, they've been at the same job for 15 years. You don't sound like somebody that doesn't know what they're talking about. Like, you can call in and you can the questions that you ask are different than questions that another broker asks that is just plain cold calling this random company. Like,
Right.
you know the industry, you know the terminology, and you've gotten scars on your back from previous loads that you have now learned from, and so you can ask them those questions. They're like, oh, really? I've never, like, just spark their interest in certain ways that you wouldn't if you weren't niche, if it wasn't your normal.
Absolutely. Obviously, we're talking about lessons that you learn. I'm kind of curious if we look forward a little bit here. You started 4 years ago as a freight broker. Every year it's changed. Every year you've seen a different way of selling, a different way of reaching out that's worked.
Yeah.
Right. Where do you see the next 2 years, 3 years going, as far as either reaching out to shippers or, touching base with carriers? How do you see the next 2 years, really 3 years, playing out? And I don't expect you to have a crystal ball here, but, I always thought it was interesting. The way I sold in 2008, comparative to the way I sold in 2017 as a freight broker, were just way different. I mean, on an entirely different level. So what do you see the next 2 years going, as far as how will outreach look? How will communication look? How will relationships look?
Yeah. I think, it's growing daily, but social media is going to play a big factor, and it already is, but I think it's going to continue to play a bigger role in reaching out and prospecting and selling. And then, like, as we saw during COVID, Zoom was a big thing, and I think it'll continue to be. I like having face-to-face conversations. You can judge how they're, like, taking the conversation a little bit more by looking at their facial expression. So, like, I've done a lot where I just send prospect Zoom links and hop on and, like, actually have that face-to-face talk with them. And so I think that's going to continue to grow too. Just, everybody over the last couple of years just became so distant just because of the situations going on in the country. So I think that in a couple of years, people want more connection.
Yeah.
And so the face-to-face and the social media aspect will continue to blow up, I would assume. Other than that, like I said, I don't really have a crystal ball. So
I think something that you'll see a lot more success in, from just my standpoint of looking in, I really try to keep a close eye on marketing, on different things like that. Every week we hear of people blasting out thousands of emails and having robot calls and just, oh my gosh, like, you know what I mean? It just is that's a nightmare way of going about it. But I think what you're going to see get really deep is personalized video messaging, such as if you're connected on LinkedIn. This is really interesting. You can actually send a video. You just push this little button, you record a 30-second video, and actually do a cold call through video messaging on LinkedIn. It is the next level, right? And so I know I've done a few, I've sent out a few, and I thought it was interesting to be able to get those people on the phone. But I really think you've got to take the time to take a personalized approach to trying to find the next prospect.
Yeah.
So I think that's really important. Ryan asks, put that up on the screen. Once he said, do you ever use, what's he say here? Do you ever use Zoom or FaceTime with your customers for the face-to-face communication? That's a good question. What do you do?
I mean, I've used Zoom a lot. With like current customers and stuff, customers that I already had, I don't Zoom with them. We're on a phone call or even a text base. But I new customers, a lot of times I like sending them that Zoom link, and then you get to know them a lot sooner and a lot easier, I guess, because you get to see them and you get to interact with them. It's not so much face to face, but
Right.
you get to at least see them. You know what they look like. You know, I mean, just little things like that. It helps. It helps personalize your relationship with them a little bit more. You know, I talk like we were talking about all those truck drivers. I talk to them every day. If they walked in this door, I might not know what they look like, because I've never had that face to face conversation with them. And most of the guys I deal with are old guys that don't have social media, so I don't know what they look like. But with customers, like hopping on a Zoom call, I think it helps a lot. It helps set you aside from everybody else that's just on the phone.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. And I'll be honest with you. And Kyle says, can you do a video on that LinkedIn program? You know what? We'll do one next week for sure. Absolutely. I think that's an interesting. I don't know if a lot of people realize you can do that on LinkedIn.
Yeah.
So I'll shoot that over. We'll get it out on our YouTube next week, Kyle. And again, for those of you just joining or coming on, we're giving out some swag this week. So comment, like, subscribe, whatever it may be, and we'll be sending out some swag this week, so you guys can start seeing some e-carrier check stuff come out to you. So I'm excited about that. What do we got here? Justin. Oh, here we go. Kelvin. Here's it. I like Kelvin. Kelvin just graduated. This is interesting. Kelvin just graduated from CSU.
Colorado State?
Yeah, I know.
That's
And
awesome.
I love this because he doesn't realize I'm only 2 hours away. We're only 2 hours away from you, Kelvin. I would love for you to come up here.
You go Pokes.
Exactly.
That's all I gotta say.
Before you get into objection handling, I think something that's also going to set people apart as we continue to go, in my personal opinion, is taking the time to not only get out and visit your customers personally,
Mhm.
but honestly, I know gas is weirdly expensive right now, so that's a whole nother kettle of fish. But that's not a long term thing.
Yeah.
We're not going to be in it for $5 for the restaurant. I hope not, anyway. If not, we're going to have to go like electric tomorrow.
Yeah, horse and buggy.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
But I think really, something that I started with in 2008 was face to face phone, calls,
Mhm.
and I did cold calls face to face as well as warm up face to face.
Yeah.
I didn't even care. You're just walking into businesses. You're just cutting your teeth. I got my Impala, and I'm literally pulling into parking lots, and I'm just going. And I think something that should come back, or something that needs to start coming back, is how do you differentiate yourself? Walk into the business.
Yeah. That's a big
Big
thing.
A big believer in that. Kelvin asks, how do you go about handling objections from shippers? I love this question, Kelvin. I'd love to hear, from a cold call standpoint or any kind of objection selling, how do you go about that?
Well, I think if there's objections when you're cold calling, you gotta like know when to step back. And so if they're not liking what you're selling, you gotta know that it's time to call it quits. But try to get their email or try to get some form of communication and just reach out to them every now and then. Obviously, not every cold call is going to work out well, but if they start having some issues with what you're selling, or you can tell they don't want to talk to you, things like that. I mean, you got to know when to stop, because if not, you just annoy them even more. So, I think that's.
How do you know that though? Are you catching that from a tone?
Yeah,
a
their tone of
speed?
voice.
Like break it down a little bit deeper so that people understand how you know that. Not everybody has your skill set.
So I mean, you can just tell if they're asking you questions and like they're involved in the conversation, they're obviously interested. They want to get to know me and what I do and what I can do for them. But if they're just like, oh, it's another guy selling, like they're going to be short the way that they answer questions that I'm asking, super short, one-word answers. Their tone drops. Like, I mean, they're very monotone and they don't want to talk to you, and or they'll be really, really quick, and you'll be like, oh, I'm taking their time, like, and it's almost kind of rude because you're like, well, if you just give me 20 seconds, but they're just like, nope, I don't have time for this, and so you can tell on the phone pretty quickly just if they're interested or not.
I have a good question for you. So you get that objection, maybe you call them at a bad time.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe they had a bad day, right? We never know what's going on that other side. Do you ever maybe contact them maybe a couple months down the road
Mm-hmm.
to maybe see if things are a little bit different in their situation?
Yeah, I do that quite a bit. I just kind of keep folders in my emails, and if I have their email, I'll shoot them an email right after I get off the phone, and I'll thank them for their time, and I'll be like, hey, if you ever need anything, I'm here. And then like in a month or 2 or 3 months, and sometimes they'll even be like, hey, call me back in 6 months, man. Like, this is a bad
Right.
time, and so you throw that in the calendar and you reach back out to them again. And sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't, but.
Yeah, I always feel like when you sound like everyone else,
Mm-hmm.
the objections and the hard nose or the quick nose or that I'm busy sort of vibe that you're getting, you got to be creative,
Mm-hmm.
and that's where your research comes in. I really think that if you called someone and gave them value real quickly and say, hey, I understand you're the shipping manager, but the reason for the call is if I could have 20 minutes to talk about how fuel is impacting local carriers and how important it is that you connect with either freight brokers or carriers that are right there locally so you can help drive their business, but also help support you. Would you have 20 minutes on Thursday? That didn't even sound like a cold call.
Yeah.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like we're stepping it up. I think this is kind of interesting. Is absolutely hate cold calling. It's my own fear. I love what you say here at the end though, but you keep going, right? You just got to keep going. You don't take it personal. And, at the end of the day, you don't have a point. You don't have a choice. You've got to just keep going. And you do. Hey, Andrea, this is probably one of the more interesting, things. Nate and I talk about mindset all the time. We talk about, mental health. We talk about emotional mindset. Nate obviously takes time every morning. He resets. He went to breakfast this morning with some friends early. 5:30, he's having a cup of coffee. Talk about how important mindset is to get your day going. And then even just for both of you, but I'd love to hear from Nate here. What does mental toughness do for you when it comes to going through the day?
Yeah, we definitely talked about this a couple of times in our videos. I'm a big mental health guy. I know you are too. And, I deal with that myself. And, we're trying to rekindle, trying to just reflect on your life. Sometimes you can have those hard days. And, you've seen my days. I've had some rough days. And, you're always there to talk to me. I really appreciate you for that. But, always try to find somewhere to rekindle, to just build up your confidence somehow. Go for a walk. I started working out over lunch. That's helped me get my mentality even stronger.
Mm-hmm.
So that's one way I've found that's worked out for me. I think those that are kind of struggling with that because you're working from home, if you're afraid to cold call, my advice, honestly, just do it. The 100th time you may not be as confident still, but maybe your 1,000th call will be different. I just think, mentality, you just got to find what is going to reset your mind and kind of take a step back. Life can be really tough.
Oh yeah.
It can be.
Yeah.
And once you get that first cold call that works, it's kind of like golf. I'm a really bad golfer, but if I have one good shot, guess what? I'm coming back next week.
Yeah.
So it's kind of the same way. You can just have days where nothing works, and then bam, one hits, and you're like, man, I'm the cold call king, and you just keep calling.
Yeah.
I've had. One of my favorite stories is I was cold calling all week long, getting told no. I got a guy on the phone, and he was very short with me, very, very, almost kind of rude. And he goes, the freight industry right now is like a soup sandwich. He goes, I don't have time to talk. And I said, soup sandwich is a term I use a lot. And I was like, wait a minute, what'd you just say? And we started talking about that. And his tone switched immediately. And we related on so many levels. And I actually landed that account that day, just because of like a word that he used, and I instantly related to him. And so there's things like that. Like I was getting just beat down all week long, and then that guy said that word, and I was like, wait a minute, I think we can become best friends.
Yeah.
And so
Yeah, Andrew, definitely, you have to keep going. You found some good leads and great people that are willing to network. That's the thing, though. You make that call, and maybe they don't need you, but maybe that customer has someone else that may need you. So networking is very huge.
Yeah. It's interesting how for me, when I'm either in a place where I've been frustrated all week or even just to a point where I just feel like nothing's working, right? Andrea says, it's all about your network and communicating. And so what I will do, or what I'll find myself doing, is I will go through my social sites, my phone list. And for those people that I haven't reached out to lately, I literally just text them and say, hey, how you been?
Yeah.
I haven't talked to you forever. And I try to sort of take a step back out of my own situation and try to either get involved in somebody else's life for a moment, or try to help somebody, or really try to just say, I need to say hi to 10 people this week. Right. It's interesting. I just went through my phone list the other day. My phone's up on TikTok there. But I went through my phone list the other day, and I text 22 people that I have not talked to for I bet a year. And I'm like, what? This is insane. Why haven't I actually said anything? How you been? What have you been up to? How's your kids? And so when I get to that point in my mental aspect where I'm at capacity, there's no more me left. I always try to give it back to somebody else and try to help others. And that can even go for my kids. Sometimes I just dive in and be really, really present.
Right.
I think that's literally half the battle. It's just being present.
I think it made you feel good after that too.
Yeah.
And after my cup of coffee with my old, my friends I haven't seen in a while, really good to just kind of talk. They help you reset your mentality, continue on your way. We talk about what's your why in this business. With you, I think that's a really good question. What was your why? What kept you going through those hard days?
I had some pretty good leadership that, them tough days that we'd go for walks, or we'd go to just reset. And my biggest thing is I didn't want to let them down. They took a chance on me as a kid coming out of college that knew nothing about this industry, or really had, I had zero experience in any of this. Yeah. And so they took a chance on me, and I'm a type of person that if you're willing to give me a chance, I'm going to give you everything I got. So
that's awesome.
Yeah, absolutely. Any last thoughts here? Any closing thoughts? We'll have you back on. It's been a great show. I've really enjoyed learning from you. And just feeling and understanding your experiences. I'm sorry you had a rough week, but I'm glad it's Friday.
It's Friday.
Any closing thoughts for people that are just getting started, or people that are 5 years in? Do you have any other thoughts for them that you want to give?
Just keep going.
Yeah.
Just don't stop. Cold calling, don't stop. Trying to provide service. And above all, bid $12 a mile right now, because it's it's crazy.
Yeah, that's fair. Well, you do a lot of heavy haul stuff, so you're into some crazy stuff. You're not doing the typical van stuff and things like that. So, Nate, any other or last thoughts?
Yeah, just please reach out to us. Let's help you grow your business. Let's talk strategies. We're not your crystal ball, like Jared likes to put it, but we're going to help you. Talk strategies, figure out, ways to grow your business, to grow yourself as a person. Let's grow together, in my opinion. So hit us up for demos, every Monday at 6 p.m. Eastern, Tuesdays and Thursdays at 2 p.m. Eastern. And then obviously every Friday, come check us out on live and come with questions. We want to help.
Yeah. Next week's Friday Live should be entertaining.
Yeah.
We're going to have a special guest on, and we'll be talking carrier sales. So if I'm an owner operator, or I'm a small trucking company, how do I find more direct shippers? So that'll be next week's topic. I'm super excited about that.
Me too.
Definitely hit subscribe, like, comment. We'll be sending out some eCarrier Check swag, and hit us up if you have any questions. I really enjoyed today. Have a great rest of your day.
Yeah.